This is Deer and Deer Hunting's Nightmare Neighbors episode of Deer Talk. Now, thanks for joining us. I am Dan Schmidt. I don't know how many of these we've done this year, but we appreciate you listening, watching, and sharing these videos. That's all we ask. And podcasts, I'm sorry. Download the podcast, listen to it wherever you are. Ian Sanchez, my crack producer, and I, we were having this conversation, was it last week, Ian? About, let's do a podcast. Let's put this out there on social media and ask people just for this past season. And I think we're going to have to open it up next time for all time. This past season, what were your worst stories from deer season? Oh my gosh, we got some good ones already. We posted this on Twitter and Facebook, I think only so far. And you guys and gals have been just incredible with your responses. So what I'm going to do today on the podcast is I'm just going to read these. I wish there was a way that we could connect everybody. Maybe we'll do that with a Facebook Live someday.
Maybe if we get like some really good ones, we'll bring those people on.
Bring them on and just elaborate on their stories.
Right.
But I'm just going to go through some of these and then, comment where we can. Just add some color commentary or maybe some insights. But let's get to it. The first few I took from Twitter. This was off my personal page. I got to thank you guys. You guys have been so great. I think I got a core of about 17,000 people on there who every day they text me good morning. They see how we're doing. It's really a virtual deer camp, and I love everybody over there. They don't even call it Twitter anymore. I think they call it X. I'm always going to call it Twitter. It was awesome. So I'm going to start off. This is my buddy Don. I don't even know his first name, and he's gonna contact me. Southern Wisconsin. He is at Brew Crew Critic, Brewers fan. This was his story. He said, we bought a property that bordered a Christmas tree farm Christmas tree farm office / shipping center in central Wisconsin that had gone out of business. The first year after the purchase, something that was promised didn't happen. And what was promised is that place started up as a Christmas tree business again. So you guys might not, this is a local one that I know all too well. Are you familiar with that Watoma Wild Rose area?
Yeah.
So it's basically sandy soil. Coincidentally, not that long ago, the state record typical was killed out of there.
Okay.
And I think it was, last name was Inda, and it was a 200-inch typical.
Oh my God.
Actually, it was bigger. I take that back. It was bigger than the Jordan buck. So the famous Jordan buck was 206, I believe. So we'd have to look it up. But anyways, that's the area, and it's sandy soils, just solid Christmas tree. So mostly like balsam fir, spruce, other Christmas tree varieties, and that place can hold big bucks. But the second you set foot on it, it's very difficult. And my heart goes out to them because that one in particular, you got buyer beware, especially in today's age where you're spending around here. I don't know how it is, but you guys can chime in on the comments on the podcast, but $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 an acre is not uncommon for deer hunting land around here.
Oh, it's sometimes even more.
Even higher, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 7, 8, 10.
So ridiculous.
And can you imagine... man, we got our own place to hunt now. And now that place is basically going, the neighbor's nonstop Christmas tree farm.
Yep. Running machinery.
Which is right in hunting season.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Man, that's right off the bat, that's a tough one. And that was at no fault of theirs and really no fault of the neighbor because, neighbor's just trying to make a living too.
Right. And it's like you can have those verbal agreements in place when you're buying a property. Well, I'm going to get this place with 15 acres on this side, and the neighbor says that I can hunt at this time of the year, but they can, unless it's like some contract, written legal like they can break that, and they
unless you own it, you're gonna lose rights to it. That's my famous quote. I could tell you lease stories, many lease stories. I think I probably have already told you, Ian, my lease stories. But unless you own the land, nothing's for sure.
Yeah, we just aired a short about the 40 acres that you leased.
That's it.
Yeah, that was surrounded by, what was it again?
Well, that one was the guy sold the land. I was leasing it, and it was actually great hunting land.
I thought there was something that you leased and you and your buddy Joe couldn't kill a deer on it because
one.
they wouldn't even make it. It was
yes.
landlocked. It was a landlocked property.
Yes.
The deer couldn't even make it into your field because the
neighbors
neighbors were all killing them before they'd get on your property.
They had basically figured out, that was during gun season, and they had basically figured out how to cut off every single deer that was going to come to that property.
Oh, no.
And we sat there, and it was like a war zone, just listening to all these guys like filling every single tag they had, and we didn't see a single deer. Yeah, that's a tough one. Okay, let's move on. This is Greg, another buddy of mine over at Twitter, Buckslayer Wells. He says, our neighbor came out at 3:30 almost every evening last fall, and he ran a chipper shredder right at the hedgerow that separates the properties. He does this for about 45 minutes, then leaves. Or he will brush hog even in December. Also, we won't shoot, quote, his deer.
I don't like it when people, label the deer as theirs or, yeah,
that's going to be a common one in all these comments. That one is tough. There's nothing much you can do about it. Sorry that you had to deal with that, Greg. The biggest thing, okay, we're going to do another podcast, Ian. We're going to call it basically on how hunters violate just about every single commandment, but that's not going to be this podcast. But even if you love your neighbor, you're going to have neighbors like that. And even if you turn the other cheek, you're going to have neighbors like that. What do? You got to get creative, but man, that sucks. I mean, if there's somebody running a chipper shredder, and we find it these days a lot with everybody hunting such small properties, it's really difficult just to hunt deer in general, but especially if you're buck hunting, man, that's a tough one. Okay, Jamie Duff. This was not even a neighbor situation. Jamie was bow hunting out of a box blind. His first shot, bow hunting. 10-pointer walked out, gave him a perfect broadside shot. He had a 20-yard pin on him, and he forgot that to factor in the clearance on the window. So he basically he sent a picture. He center punched the window,
smacked the blind
with the broadhead. We've had that happen.
That's a common mistake. We were in
that is a nightmare, by the way.
Deer camp. I won't say where.
Oh yeah.
We were in a deer camp, and some gentleman who was very excited when he saw a deer. He had a compound bow, and the plastic window for the blind was still up, and he shot right through the blind, and he didn't realize that he did that even after he shot. He was still that excited.
Kerpow, yeah. That is a nightmare, and Jamie's point, it was a 10-pointer.
Some duct tape will fix that.
Can you imagine biggest buck? I've had it happen. Jeff Fogel. Jeff, you and I connect all the time. Let's see what Jeff have to say. This is common. 6 bucks between the ages of 2 to 4, 2 of which were 25-inch wide 8-pointers, both 3.5 years old. He had passed them all up. The neighbors killed them. Jeff's problem, which you talk about, now we talked about small landowners. Jeff's problem, this is Jeff writing, I have a 1,500-acre farm. The neighbors have small properties. So damn frustrating. I get it. It just sucks. I haven't killed a buck in 6 years. Welcome to deer hunting in America.
Modern day America's deer hunting situation is that there's so many little parcels, and you see the point of view from everyone here, right? Like these other people who don't have that much money that just want to get their foot in the door.
10 acres.
Yeah, just want to get their foot in the door. Whereas
and a 25-inch wide 8-pointer steps out in front of you.
All have different ways of how they want to manage it.
Yep. I'm going to bring out a Charlie Alshammer quote, bless his soul. Charlie said once, this is to the guys who do QDM, and I like shooting big bucks too, but Charlie always said, if you're trying to do QDM and you're surrounded by small property owners, once they find out what you're doing, they're going to take advantage of you in spades. And it's true. It does suck. There's not much you can do about it. Okay, Deanne Rabbit. I know that's not Deanne's last name, really. Great rabbit hunter. I believe Deanne's from Indiana. She had the neighbor call the game warden on her because she was squirrel hunting near the property line.
Wow. Yeah, don't be shooting my booner squirrels.
What? Who does that?
Yeah.
I'd like to know more of that story. Was it because he was
Was there a firearm like involved? How did it all like? Did it maybe?
or he was a
startle
deer
neighbor?
hunter, and why are you
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's see. Craig Kohler. Okay, this is the last one from Twitter, and then we're gonna go to Facebook. Craig, one of the neighbors let his dogs run loose during hunting season. He saw them chasing deer in the woods. The guy lets his dogs bark endlessly outside also. That one I don't know where Craig's from, but depending on where you live,
It's kind of relatable.
very relatable. However, where we live, especially in our county, now there's different county ordinances and state ordinances, but where we live in Waupaca County,
Yeah.
there is a leash law.
Really?
Yeah, so you have to have your dog on a leash. Now, if you're hunting, different story, but I do know also like guys who are blood trailing, those dogs have to be on leashes here in Wisconsin. So, Craig, you might want to check into your state and local ordinances on that. Dealing with dogs is one I've had the problem. Ian knows it all too well.
Oh yeah.
Barking dogs,
Yep.
not much you can do about it. Now, I know a lot of deer hunters are going to say, oh, that doesn't bother those deer. They hear it all the time. To an extent, yes. However, if you're close to a barking dog,
It's added pressure.
it's added
You're not
pressure,
gonna-
especially if you're trying to hunt bucks.
Like maybe if the dog's like a quarter mile away. Sure.
They do get used to it. One of my neighbors, she runs she does boarding where like,
Yeah. Yep.
and that basically is just like you're used to it because it's dogs bark, but it's fenced by her house.
Yeah.
But a situation where they're running in the woods, yeah, man, that
That's just dangerous, and that's kind of, in my opinion, and some people may disagree, but I think that is just carelessness on the dog owner's
It
part
is.
because that's a dangerous situation. I'm
Very.
not saying that some trigger happy person is going to go out there and make an accident, but I definitely think that they'll, yeah,
Well, and that's a good point that you bring up because everybody listening to this, I know there's a lot of bravado saying, well, that wouldn't happen by my stand. You better be damn careful there because dogs are private property. And number one, you shouldn't be taking it out on a dog because, it's not the dog's fault. Dog's doing what a dog's supposed to do.
right,
But in the heat of the moment, you make a wrong decision. You could be. We've covered them in deer hunting. Guys have gotten prison time for shooting dogs.
yep,
And I remember one here. This has got to go back 20 years ago. The guy shot. It was a big what was Lassie? A collie?
border collie, I think.
Yeah, a collie. Somebody shot this big Lassie style type of dog. It was running on his property chasing deer.
Clearly not a deer, like
No, he
yeah.
knew it was there. There was actually documented problems between him and the neighbor.
Yeah.
Shot it with a bow and arrow.
Oh, what?
Gut shot it. Yes, this is 20 years ago, and there just so happened to be a little bit of snow cover when that happened, and the wardens actually, when they showed up and they blood trailed this dog. They actually back trailed it because they found the dog.
Right.
Back trailed it right into the guy's property. He was arrested, charged, and I know that he got some type of jail time off.
I would hope so. That's murder, basically.
It is off of a pet. So, I mean,
Yeah.
just be careful there. If you got the problem, man,
This plays into the last one that we read about the squirrel hunting. The lady who's from Indiana, squirrel hunting, the DNR came. Like, this all can be avoided problems on both sides of the story can be avoided with just a little bit of pre-established conversation.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get
Like,
to.
yeah, I mean, yeah, be cordial. Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes neighbors are just not going to like.
So what do you do if it doesn't work? Let's say this is the modern America situation,
Okay.
right? I'm young. I just bought 10 acres. Whoa, that's a lot of land for a, person in their mid 20s. What do I do if I talk to my neighbor and he's like, "We only shoot 6-year-olds, and if you shoot a deer,
Yep.
you better not be coming onto my property to trail it," and stuff like
I've-
that. What do you do?
I've been there. That's a great question, Ian. And as you know, because you've hunted with me, you've filmed me, I don't know how many thousands of times already. For me personally, this is me personally, can you 100% guarantee this? No, but you know me, I am mighty careful with my shot selection. There's a couple things. Number one, I usually hunt in a situation like that. I've had many properties over the years, small properties, where I knew the neighbor, like it's not even an option. I limit my time when I hunt it to off hours, like middle of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I don't go during high traffic times. I do not draw attention to myself when I'm going out there, but when I'm hunting, I'm not taking a 35-yard shot at a deer that's walking through the woods.
Yeah.
Bow hunting I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for that deer to be 15 yards, slam dunk. I know that thing's not going 50 yards, if that. Does it happen? Actually, I don't remember. I don't remember a situation like that where I shot a deer and then I'm like, dang, now what? No, actually, I do remember. I did shoot a deer. It crossed onto a guy's property. This is 20 years ago. Crossed onto a guy's property. We didn't know it at the time, but it probably only made it 50 yards onto his property.
Yeah.
I went over there with my tail between my legs, and I basically said, listen, I know we've had situations in the past. You don't want me in your property, but here's a situation. I explained it. I shot this deer. I don't think he went far. I will go in there. You tell me when I can go in there, and I'm not bringing a weapon with me. And I had to wait. I think that happened on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And then I had to wait until he said, okay. And he was kind of grumpy, really wouldn't even make eye contact with me. But he said, Sunday, 11 o'clock, show up. And I don't want you in there for more than, he goes, a short amount of time.
Yeah.
So I said, thank you very much. I went in there. Sure enough, we found it. Joe's going to remember this one. We found it. We dragged the deer as a monster buck. Dragged it out of there. And then afterwards, I went over to the guy. I just asked him, actually before I hung up with him. Nope, I had called him back. Said I found the deer. And he said, well, that's good. It didn't go to waste or something like that. And then I just said, hey, are you a beer drinker? And he said, huh? I said, no. I said, do you drink beer? And he said, yeah. I went and got him the best beer that's made. And it was Spotted Cow.
Oh, there you go.
I got him a case of it.
Yeah.
And I went over there, and he goes, well, you didn't have to do that? I said, nope, I very much appreciate it. Now, did that mend defenses completely? No, but I saw him after that. He has since passed away. But in the years after that, he was very, he had, like I said, and it wasn't even like born out of conflict with me. I think it was born out of conflict with the previous probably
bad situation
30 years
beforehand.
worth of neighbors that he didn't want to deal with.
Right.
And he was probably, I think, all in all, he was just sick of deer hunters.
Yeah.
And that helped. But to your point, Ian, a lot of this, we're all kind of introverts, I think, when it comes to deer hunting. What I mean by that is we don't, for whatever reason, we don't know our neighbors. I think that's just Americans in general now. We don't know our neighbors, and it's always like we get to know them based off of something that's important to us. In this case, it would be, oh, can I access your land?
Right. When it's only convenient for you.
When it's only convenient. You should just be trying to be a good neighbor way before that with no intentions. I wouldn't even bring it up that you're a deer hunter the first time you meet them.
No, absolutely.
You're meeting them in summer or spring?
Because I feel like if you just get land and you go to the neighbor's house and the first thing you do, you're like, hi, I'm such and such. This is my wife. These are my kids. So deer hunting, let's talk about, like, I feel like if that's within the first conversation, you've already established that that's what you care about more than the relationship with the neighbor, which sends a bad message to the neighbor right away.
Bad message. And the other thing that does, what people do, what you just brought up there is like, well, I'm the new owner over here.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how it comes off.
And
yeah.
we try to shoot only 4-year-olds or older.
Yep.
And the guy owns like 20 acres. You know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But okay, back to questions. That was a good one.
Yeah. What's
or
the
not
next
their
one?
questions. These are comments.
Yeah. Next story.
Next story. Another dog one from John Jurek. We kind of covered that. Marcus Stidham had one about guys poached deer. Let me just see here once. Adam Hollinger said neighbors used a drone to chase deer off his property.
That's kind of a new one.
Yeah,
that people are having to deal with.
And I haven't dealt with that at all. I know you guys use a drone just for the TV show, but does it spook them a lot?
we don't film deer with the drones.
Oh,
Yeah, we just use those for like B-roll and stuff. But I know, like, from what I've heard from people who do like where it's legal, of course, and applicable drone recoveries.
yeah, I've seen those. There's a couple guys with YouTube
Yep,
channels.
Mike Yoder. Yep, and what I've seen and heard from those guys is that the deer aren't really that spooked by it for the most part, because you can be so high up.
That's
and then
what I
just zoom
thought.
in. Yeah.
And our drones are, I'm speaking out of pure ignorance here. They're pretty expensive, aren't they?
Yeah, if someone's scaring off a deer with the drone, they're doing it on purpose, I would say, most likely.
Well, but I mean, aren't you running the risk that you're going to crash that thing and,
well, you're always, yeah.
And you crash it on a neighbor's property where you're trying to mess with them, and then you're kind of,
Yeah.
That's odd. Deer Talk Now is brought to you by Moultrie. Moultrie Mobile's Edge Trail camera is affordable and easy to set up. The camera works on multiple networks nationwide and even has built-in storage. That means no SD card required. For more information, visit moultriemobile.com. Okay, Brad Kraus, this came from Facebook. Neighbor, this is kind of messed up. Neighbor built a huge elevated blind 10 feet from our property line. That happens. Faces their property. Okay. And they have to drive through the middle of their property to access it, so it hasn't hurt us that bad. All right. Also had a guy turkey hunting one spring with a dog and a rifle. Trespassing, yeah, that's not good. I thought that was going somewhere else. Let's see what we got here.
Yeah, the thing with the, that's kind of tricky with the putting a blind up, where like it's facing the other direction.
Well, this one was, let's talk about that, because this one, he said, they put up a blind 10 feet. That's how everybody is. I know, and this isn't against, his name was Brad, right? This isn't against Brad. It was, the neighbor's got to stand 10 feet off the property line. Well, it's his land,
Yep.
This one was facing the guy's land.
Oh, yeah.
His land, not the neighbor.
Yeah.
It was facing the guy. The guy who put it up had the courtesy not to face it towards the neighbor's land.
Okay.
Which, that is a conflict. Like, you put up a stand on the property line and it's facing your neighbor's land.
You're shooting deer on my land.
Right.
Yeah.
That's something that's got to be addressed. But especially in small property areas, you gotta, you're just asking for trouble by putting that stand up that close. Because what it does is it escalates. And let me talk about that for a minute, because escalation comes in many forms with neighbors. Number one, you put up a stand right on the property line. It's going to escalate in the fact that the neighbor he's either going to put a stand up right next to you on his property line, or they're going to start messing with you. Like you heard about the one guy with the wood chipper, and the other guy's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go ride my horse now at sunset on opening day of gun season."
Because kids are gonna go outside and start playing in the yard.
So that escalates things. The other thing that escalates things is, you wouldn't think about this. One you mentioned is coming right out to a neighbor and saying, just so you know, we're big QDMers. That escalates things if they're not on the same page with you.
Yeah.
Or, like, we don't like to shoot yearling bucks, or we don't like does being shot. If it's something coming from you is sounding like you're pontificating, that's going to escalate things.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's going to escalate things is trying to tell people, like, well, we try not to hunt on opening day, or we don't do deer drives, or things like that.
Yeah.
So those are the things you got to keep in mind and kind of walk on eggshells around. What I would say in those situations, I'm not putting stands right on the property line if I know that, it's going to be a problem. And the other thing too is you got to figure out how to have that conversation without making it worse, because then it's going to get worse.
Like, yeah, like you have to go talk to your neighbor, like, hey, I don't like that you have this is how you feel. You don't like that they have their stand right on your property line, but you can't just blatantly say that to them. And it's not like you can really find a way around wording that other than just like.
And they're probably not going to care, because they probably know they're on the property line.
Yeah, and they know that, and if they did it, and they knew they were doing it, they probably don't care that you're mad about it.
Here's one that is right with the conversation. Jason Melvin. Jason, thank you for offering this insight here. He says, no kidding, this just happened to me. Opening day of Missouri whitetail rifle season. I've got my cheap Walmart ladder stand set up on the eastern border of some public land about 15 feet from a property line, fully facing the public land. Landowner on the east side drives up to his fence line at about 9 a.m., 50 feet from my stand, and starts yelling at me to make sure that I'm not shooting on his land. We exchange pleasantries. Now the day is shot. Go back to the second Saturday of the season and catch a nice mature doe, so he got a deer.
That's good.
Fast forward to this past weekend. The tree stands have to be removed from public land by January 31st. So he goes to retrieve his, and lo and behold, there's 2 straps cut.
Wow.
Okay, so things escalated a couple of ways there. Number one, they got into, sounds like, I don't know if it was heated, but they exchanged pleasantries, he said. But it sounds like Jason was hunting the public land while he was 15 feet off the property line. I'm not saying it's right what this guy did, but what could have maybe circumvented that was maybe backing off and saying, "Okay, I gotta move back a little bit." You know, that's I'm not pointing fingers. But
I'm gonna play devil's advocate.
You play devil's advocate.
This
please.
is public land. This is
now he
this is land that I legally can be hunting on. So I don't care. I still am gonna hunt where I want to hunt, and he has to deal with it. You know, so then it's like, okay, well then, the same way that he has to worry about you butting up against his land, now you have to worry about him butting up against all of our land, public land, the land that you are currently hunting. It's kind of just so like you said, to avoid that, let's just have this unspoken agreement, you know, gentlemen and ladies agreement to just maybe not put it right up on the property line.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It goes both ways. One thing, now this goes back also a few years. We were in a big consortium with leaseholders. It was kind of like I don't want to say it was a club, but guys, especially our southern hunting listeners, know what I'm talking about. If you're part of a hunting club or a big lease, some of those actually have rules for leaseholders that stands particularly, and hunting activity has to be limited to within 100 yards of a property line, meaning that you can't put up a tree stand 100 yards from a property line. So this is your lease, however many acres you have, but now you gotta think about that. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Now for a club, for an individual, it's common sense. It's common sense that if you know the neighbors are hunting, or they don't like hunting, or maybe you're not sure. If you're not sure, lump them into the people who the previous ones I said. Just going back, I'm pulling out some more scripture here for you, but you know, love thy neighbor as thyself. How would you want to be treated in that situation? Would you want somebody to have if it was your land, how would you react? You might say, well, I wouldn't care. You could put the stand right up on the property line. Well, maybe you would, but then take a step back and say, well, how would 99 of the other 100 people react?
Yeah, you say that, but you're not putting yourself in the shoes of other people in different situations.
Mm-hmm.
And furthermore, you're saying that not actually having experienced that situation, being in a scenario like that.
And there's so many variables. Land costs a lot of money. You don't know what that guy's got going on. Maybe his wife's battling cancer. You don't know. You just don't know what's going on in somebody's life. And you got to take this, it's a self-centered attitude away and think about, I'm not saying it's going to solve every single problem, but it certainly can help. Okay, Russ Colton. What do we got here for time? Russ Colton shot a big doe from his ground blind, followed a good trail for 100 yards where it crossed the road to private property. He knocked on the owner's door and nicely requested permission to find the deer, as it was obviously dead a short run later. Long story short, the landowner denied Russ access to go retrieve his deer, And
Man.
and the next day he saw the landowner loading the doe into his truck.
Yeah, that's frustrating. You can't do anything about that.
No.
Yeah.
So it sucks. Let me tell you, born from experience. If you haven't had it happen to you, you can thank your lucky stars. I have had it happen, and it wasn't a doe. It was the biggest buck I ever shot in my life, and it still stings to this day. That story, quick sidebar, was in Illinois bow hunt with an outfitter long time ago. I was hunting, and it was the best morning of my life. I had a rattle bag, had never rattled in a deer in my life at that point. Bored out of my mind. It was the rut. Wasn't seeing anything.
What year was this?
Sorry,
I don't want to make you feel old here.
No, I do remember. You know me. I remember years. It was 1997 or 1998. I can't remember it was one of those years.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm not going to give any more details because then some people who might feel bad that I'm telling the story are going to know. Well, they probably already do know, but they're not going to know. I'm not bringing more light.
Not throwing.
So, anyways, it's an outfitted hunt. Guide takes me down this big, long, huge, beautiful wooded draw. Says the tree stand's going to be down there. I climb up, and this thing is 25 feet up in the air, and it's just tree pegs getting up there. It's a nice little lock-on type stand. I get in there. I'm bored. It's probably like 8 o'clock by now. Sun's up. I just take out my rattle bag. I rattle. I grunt. Here comes a buck. Well, lo and behold, over the next 3 hours, I rattled in 8 bucks. The first few that came in, I would have shot, but they just were cruising through. And I'm I couldn't get them to stop. A couple that did stop were smaller bucks that if I was at home, I would have killed the crap out of them. But
we're in Illinois.
Right. So it's about 10 o'clock. I see this doe come through, and she's coming through about 75 yards, and she's booking. And I see a buck, and he is a giant. And to this day, he would have been my biggest buck ever.
That's insane.
180. I mean, he was a monster. I
Wow.
could still see his non-typical points. He's 80 yards away. I rattle. He stops. I grunt. He pins his ears back, and he looks right at my stand. And I had some scent wicks in front of me. He comes walking in, licking his nose, ears back. And he gets to, and as I'm sitting there, there's a ditch right in front of me. Like, you know how it is in Illinois with those big steep ravines?
Yeah, those draws, yeah.
It's a dry creek bed or whatever.
Sure.
He's 15 feet away. And he's looking through, and he's not at the perfect angle. He's kind of quartering to me. And I was young and stupid. And I'm like, I can fit this through there. Whack. And I drive that arrow through him, and he wheels, and he jumps over that creek and runs up the hill. And he probably ran, I don't know, 50, 75 yards, and that's all I could see. So I wait. I'm just shaking. I'm a mess. This is before I had a cell phone. Guide comes to pick me up, and he said, "What happened?" I said, "I shot the biggest buck of my life." And he goes, "Great." He goes, "Where did he go?" And I said, "He ran up that hill." And the second I said that, his face lost all color. And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Well, that's the property line." I'm like, "What?" My tree was literal inches off the property line.
Oh my gosh.
He goes, "Well, we're gonna have to call." I said, and I was at that point. I just completely changed. I said, "You've got to be kidding me!" I said, "You put me on the like right on the property line."
Right.
And he goes, "Yeah, man, it's a great spot, isn't it?" I'm like,
"For them."
So we go back. This is on I think it's a Sunday, and get a hold of the landowner. He goes, "Oh no, man, I've got hunters in there. You can't go in there." And then whatever wrangling or haggling they did, the landowner agreed to let us go back in there on Wednesday after the hunters left. Well, lo and behold, you know where the story's going.
Yep.
Wednesday morning, we get there at first light. So this is, okay, shot him Sunday morning. It's Monday, Tuesday. It's like almost 3 days later. Which, it was cold, but the deer's not going to be any good. We go in there, we get across that creek, blood, nothing. I mean, like, nothing.
Yeah.
We got maybe 100 yards in there.
Yeah.
You know what happened.
Yeah, they took that thing out of there.
And it just made me sick to my stomach.
So in the well, first of all, comment on that. That's unfathomably, that just sucks. That would eat me alive, and I think that'd eat any hunter alive to have to be in that situation, especially if it's your biggest buck. But if we live in the era of digital video now, and let's say, without a doubt, you can prove I put an arrow in that deer that came from me, and it went on their property, and you call a game warden, there's nothing you can do.
Not a dang thing.
That is so messed up.
Not a dang thing.
If you could just prove, yep, that's me in the tree, and I just shot that deer. He runs onto the property, and the neighbor's got him on his wall now.
Nope.
Goes to the bar, probably telling everyone he shot the deer.
The rule there is sucks to be you. That's what the rule is.
That's terrible.
The only state now, I don't even know how it's possible not to have this escalate into some nasty things. But Minnesota, I know for sure. Now, you guys from Minnesota listening to this, watching this, you tell me. But in Minnesota, you have the right to trail a deer on neighbor's land.
Really?
You can't take a weapon, but
Yeah.
or I should say, you have a right to retrieve it.
Do you have to reach out to them do you have to contact
That
them
you guys
first?
are gonna have to help me with, but I know that you can go retrieve a deer on a neighbor's land.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know.
Other states, not sure. Wisconsin, no.
Because
Wisconsin,
if you just have to let them know, I would just think it would be as easy as here's a text hey, I shot a deer, I'm going onto your land, and just go get it.
I
And that
don't
way-
I don't know how it works, but I
Right.
know that you are not legally prevented from going on the land. Here where we are, not only now the other states have other trespassing laws or lack thereof. Ours in Wisconsin is if I step 1 foot onto your property, if you step 1 foot onto my property, you are trespassing. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah.
You can't say, well, I didn't know where the line is. It's your job legally
Yep.
to know where the line is.
Yeah.
And if you're trespassing, you're trespassing. It's cut and dried. Other states, I know there's different laws and regulations. But it's got to be the worst. Well, I felt it personally, but the worst feeling in the world is shooting a deer. You know you killed it. It jumped the property line, and that's where you've got to come in, especially on smaller properties. Like I said, you can't guarantee it. There's nothing 100%.
Yeah.
You shoot a deer. I mean, we know a deer can run 30 miles an hour. They can go a long ways. But if it's trespassing, you better have that figured out long before September or October or November show up.
Yeah, these are all things we should have before, way before you're even considering flinging arrows. Yeah.
You got to have that in place, and if you don't have it in place, you got to be ready to take one of those gut punches where it's going to be like, I'm losing a deer, there's somebody messing with me, there's all sorts of other things. You're going to have what we said. You're going to have a horror story of your own to share.
Let's get one more in there.
Okay, one more question one more comment. Let's see if we can find a good one.
One good story here.
A good one. We talked about
maybe a funny
Jason's.
one if we got one.
I don't know if I've got. This isn't funny.
A lot of these aren't funny. A lot of these are just scary, kind of.
Boy, a lot of these are scary. This one that's scary. This one. Okay, we're going to end with Matthew James. This is from Facebook on the Deer and Deer Hunting page. If you guys haven't visited the Deer and Deer Hunting page on Facebook, please do it. And just follow it or like it. We've got, 800,000 people on there?
Close to 9 now, yeah.
Almost 900,000 people. We post videos and stuff every day for you. Matthew James, from last season. I'm sitting in my blind when the neighboring kids come walking through the woods 60 yards away an hour before sundown. I yelled at them to leave and got a few pleasant words in return. Went after hunting, knocked on the door and talked with the parents. Guess what happened?
Parents probably just started cussing him out or something. What?
The next morning, the kids and the dad show up in the woods twice. Went through the woods twice, clapping and making all sorts of noise. He called the DNR who stopped by, and he showed the DNR live trail camera videos. Oh my gosh. He showed the DNR warden live trail camera videos of these guys doing this.
Were they were trespassing?
They were trespassing. They all got trespassing fines.
Ha!
And he hasn't had a problem since. Well,
I love it.
That's actually when you got to go that far.
I'm glad it worked out for him. Ended on a somewhat positive. It sucks.
On a good note there, but guess what now?
He's going to be hunting with like 4 eyes, 2 in the front.
It's the Hatfields and McCoys now, I bet you. In that.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good in the fact that he got him not to do that, but on the flip side, that they're not sitting there inviting each other over for barbecue.
Absolutely not. But I mean, first of all, that speaks to the parenting of these people, because the kids are out there cussing out this guy on his land, which is, and then they to double down, and then the dad comes out there with them. That says a lot about the household. Yeah. I don't know. In certain states, I know that they have. What is it? Hunter harassment.
Oh yeah,
laws?
they do hunter harassment.
What are those?
That's in about every state. So if you can just check with your state, but I think every state has it. It's basically called hunter harassment. You cannot harass hunters, fishermen, or trappers. It's illegal. So if somebody
on what condition? Like while they're hunting for
all things. Like if you're hunting and somebody comes doing that's hunter harassment. If you're trapping and somebody like rips your traps out of the ground or steals them or sets them off, or that's trapper harassment.
Yeah.
And I know, it's going to be hard to probably prove on some of these.
Yeah.
But in that case, he had video proof.
Trail cameras come in really handy. Yeah.
And we've got great trail cameras now. You've got cell cameras and stuff.
Cell cameras that can literally they have anti-theft modes and can be tracked.
And especially if if it's just plain and simple trespassing.
Yeah.
That's an easy one.
Yep.
That's an easy one. I mean, like if you got him and it's like, yep, that's that guy, and his kids or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
But hunter harassment, don't dismiss it. If somebody's doing that to you, again, you have to weigh the cost benefit there, especially if it's somebody you know.
Yep.
Do you turn the other cheek, or do you say, "Hey, listen, I'm turning this over now"? Or
the wife's not out there.
You could use it as a thing, saying, "Hey, I caught you red-handed."
Yeah.
You're going to get a trespassing fine off this if I turn this in.
I don't want to do that though, because I'm not that kind of guy, and you guys are good
Right.
people. You could really take that approach and
Right.
maybe salvage somewhat of the relationship. Absolutely.
And you're going to let me hunt your land exclusively. Yeah, no,
or blackmail them with it.
and you're dragging my deer out. No, I'm just kidding. All right, well, that's it for today. Ian, thank you for
that was good.
Teaming up with me on this one, and thank all of you. We're going to do this again, so just go. That post is still on our pages. Just go to our social pages, add your comments, or add them wherever you're following Deer and Deer Hunting. For Ian Sanchez, I am Dan Schmidt. Thank you so much for subscribing and listening to this podcast, and we will catch you again next Thursday for another brand new episode of the Deer Talk Now podcast.